So there you go. The floor is yours, Mike.
All right. Oh, thanks everyone for coming today. I'm just going to share screen and we'll get started. All right. How are we looking?
You can see it.
Very nice. Beautiful.
Okay. So today's class is in session, so welcome. Today I wanted to sort of cover some basics on Australia for those who might be unfamiliar with the destination, but at the same time sort of take it to the next level and I suppose challenge the norm of thinking on how you might look at designing an itinerary for Australia, given its substantial size and the experiences that are on offer within each state. So as Tina mentioned, we do 4 destinations. New Zealand, we have an office in Tauranga and Wanaka, where Charlotte's based, our country manager. We do the South Pacific, Australia, of course, and Papua New Guinea for the more intrepid travelers. We're a pretty medium-sized team, I'd say. 4 of us in Australia and another 6 in New Zealand. So as a general starting guide for what we do, we are very much personalized in how we approach an itinerary. So we do like to jump on a call with your clients if possible, just to sort of understand their expectations and what their achievements and goals are for a trip and what they might be looking to do. As a basic starting guide for the shoulder season, we do suggest around the $850 per person per day mark. And I'll just move this over. For peak season, it does bump up a little bit to about $1,000 per person per day as a good starting point. So you'll be getting 5-star properties, private touring, and transfers, everything all inclusive. Australia, it's important to keep in mind, is a year-round destination. I think it's quite commonly thought that just by being hot during the summer, that is the peak period, which would be from November through to March. But actually the winter months, the shoulder months from March all the way through to November, the top half of Australia, if I go to the next slide for you, the top half of Australia up here. So from Brisbane up is more tropical. And when it's winter, the humidity is lower and the temperatures are much more comfortable. So it essentially leads to less tourism and better weather for the top end. So the Northern Territory and the Queensland area are absolutely ideal in winter, especially Uluru. I don't think many people realize just how hot the center of Australia is during summer. So it's well over 40 degrees, which is kind of unbearable. So for those winter months, we would suggest that you look at the tropical regions up north. And then for the summer months, which we're going to deep dive a little bit more here, is the Sydney, Melbourne, South Australia area. So I'm going to talk to you today a little bit how things have changed. I think pre-pandemic, it was, your classic itinerary for Australia was about a 3 to a 4 night subdivision across some of the icons. So you'd be starting in Sydney, you might work to the Blue Mountains for 2 or 3 nights. And then from there, you might head to Uluru, do another 2 nights, and then bounce over to the Great Barrier Reef and do 3 with Daintree Rainforest. But there is an incredible depth of regional tourism, which has now sort of come to the forefront since we've reopened. Australia had to look inward during that time. And what that meant is that we have a whole new bunch of really cool boutique hotels and really cool experiences, which are kind of unknown. And I think, the depth is not advertised enough into how much time you can actually spend just in one state. So I'm going to talk today about my home, which is Victoria, down the south. It's a 1.5-hour flight from Sydney. You can fly directly from LA, San Francisco, or Hawaii. It's quite common that we'll have families that might be doing something in Hawaii, and then they'll fly into Melbourne or Sydney and start from there. So how would you approach selling 6 nights in Victoria? So I'm going to just jump into sort of the depth of experiences that's on offer. So what's new? In the city, I think Melbourne's quite grungy. It's kind of like the Berlin of Germany. It's all about food and wine, music. It's run by young people, for young people. The experiences we like to put forward are extremely curated. So you see me here. I just did our graffiti masterclass. And there's a saying that goes with Melbourne that if you see a dark alley that, looks like you're going to get stabbed, you need to go down it, because Melbourne's extremely safe. And what you find behind these alleys is the best bars, the best restaurants, and also something like a graffiti experience, which we find is extremely suitable for, an extremely wealthy traveler. Could be great for families, or even just a couple, because it's very tailored. So you get to learn about the art culture of our streets, where it's all started, how it was a movement, and how it inspires political decisions. And then you can actually learn how to do the graffiti itself. And it's actually really not that easy. So you do need to learn and participate and really get into it. Generally, when clients start doing it, they're a little bit scared. It's like, we're in a dark, an alley, and it's a little bit dirty, and it's like, are we breaking the law? But then as soon as they start getting into it and they realize how fun it is, it's like stress relief. So it's one of our new go-to experiences, which is the masterclass. We can then curate that more by taking them into a gallery, and that can be fine art, and just a bit of a deep dive into that artist and the history of what they've done. The NGV, so that's the National Gallery of Victoria, is one of Australia's deepest collection of all sorts of art. And I'm not sure what my next slide is. Here we are. So pottery, clothing, and oil paintings, and you name it, it's there. They have some of the most exclusive paintings in the world. And a recent experience that we've now ready to release is that we can take our guests down into the conservatorium, where they do all the conservation work on the priceless art pieces. Now, to give you an idea of how exclusive that is, most of the staff do not have access to the elevator that goes down to this area. So it is literally like you're walking into a James Bond experience, where you're met by the director of the entire gallery. You're taken through this huge elevator, which has 6 doors. It's actually quite an experience just to do the elevator to go down because of the security. And then you're taken down to where the team of experts are basically preserving the art that is put onto the wall or donated to them. And the size and skill and expense that goes into doing this is something that is I'm not an art gallery kind of guy, but I was after I saw this, because it was just absolutely incredible. Because you literally have Rembrandts and Picassos and clothing, which, is from the 1800s, which is being restored meticulously right in front of you. What we can also do, if you want to take it to the next level, if you've got a really arty kind of client, we can essentially close down the museum and do a private night tour. And that is exceptionally special, because the guide that we use is just really good fun. And a lot of the art, art is, it can be dirty, it can be sexy, it can be a bit boring, but there's always a story behind it. And the guides know all the stories, and it's just really good fun. And we can close it down, and you can have a private dinner in front of one of the art pieces if you'd like, with a private chef. I think on the previous slide, yes, so the scenic helicopter, not so new, but an absolute must do if you're doing 2 to 4 nights in the city. It's a quick, easy experience. And then cooking with Ben Cooper. So Chin Chin. The food scene, the coffee scene in Melbourne is some of the best in the world. I say that with great confidence as an ex-barista, ex-bartender. The food here is on another level. And Ben Cooper opened up Chin Chin, which was an Asian fusion restaurant, and it turned into Australia's most successful restaurant because of the depth of flavors. And we've secured him for private cooking classes in Chin Chin, which is really cool. It's something I haven't personally done yet, but I can't wait to jump in there with him. What I have just recently done is we've also signed up Orlando Monzo, who was 2018's best bartender in the world. And Orlando can, we basically curate a night experience which goes over about 4 to 5 hours, where guests, based on their tastes. So what you're seeing here is curated to a taste. So this is actually a caviar cocktail. So the cocktail is roughly, I don't know, about $400 to $500 because they've sourced fine liqueurs and aperitivo from the 1940s, 1950s, and 60s. And then Orlando has designed the menus across the restaurants that we go. So it's a very, very high-end curated food experience across some of the best restaurants in Melbourne. So that's more on the high end, but the cooking with Ben Cooper is more affordable. It's more accessible, more fun. So a day trip to Phillip Island is also a great idea. Very popular. This is not a new experience, but something to keep in mind if you're basing out of Melbourne is that the regional areas are really, really accessible. So you're within only an hour to an hour and a half drive to about 4 key regions where there is so much to see and do, and also stay overnight. So Phillip Island, home to one of the best motorcycle racetracks in the world, as well as the Penguin Parade that you see here. So at about 7 p.m., hundreds of little penguins come out onto the beach, and we put you on a private beach, or your clients onto a private beach with a guide and a ranger, and you get to learn about all the flora and fauna and just how beautiful this island is. The picture doesn't really do it justice. On the way, we can also build in a stop at the Moonlit Sanctuary, and Michael, who owns the sanctuary, will take you around. You can pet a koala. You get to learn about the animal hospital and how they treat rescued animals, feed kangaroos. Really fun family day. And it's also like actually quite a romantic experience if like you have a couple to do the Penguin Parade, because you are on a private little section of beach. So highly recommend looking at Phillip Island and Moonlit Sanctuary. So we've done about 4 days in the CBD, and we haven't really touched. There's about 1,000 more experiences that we can talk about. They're just more the new ones. So let's look at 2 nights in the regions and where you would go. So from the CBD, you've got the Mornington Peninsula, which is home to incredible food and wine. Again, sparsely populated. There's not many people out there, but it's very, very high end. It's where, you know, it's Billionaire Alley out in the Mornington. So it feels high class. The hotels and restaurants that you go to are special and have those small touches. And it's also a very good connecting gateway to the Great Ocean Road, which I'll link into next. So with the Mornington, we generally suggest about 2 nights. It is home to, again, food and wine. What you're looking at here is a continuation to an itinerary that we did with Caviar. So we had done a night experience for the evening with Orlando, doing the Caviar Martini, which was, it's completely tailored to that guest. Now we've continued that to Point Leo Estate in the Mornington Peninsula. Point Leo Estate's owned by an extremely wealthy Jewish family. They just spare no expense. Barack Obama's dined there. It's one of the best dining experiences in Australia. And we continued that with a champagne and caviar tasting at Point Leo, which also is an art gallery. So it sits on the Bellarine Peninsula there on the water, and they have all this incredible art to go see. So you have lunch, that's the experience. You do a premium tasting, and then you go walk the art. And that in itself is an entire day. You don't need to do any more than that. It's a perfect day. Other options in the Mornington is that there's an abundance of wildlife. So wellness is something that's really come to the forefront since the pandemic. I think people guests traveling are a lot more aware of disconnecting from what they want to do every day. So their mobile phones and emails and work. So what we can do is there is a seal colony just off the Mornington, and we'll charter a small private boat depending on the size, and you can swim with dolphins and you can swim with seals. There's literally hundreds and hundreds of them. And there's a small horseshoe area of rocks in the middle of the peninsula, right? And there's absolutely no one around. And you've got all the seals making all their noises and their grunts. You can smell all the farts and all the smells. It's you're really like you're in amongst all the animals, and there's hundreds of birds. And what we've done recently is a meditation session amongst the animals. So it can be like a sound healing or yoga. And It's actually really quite profound because you're being forced to sort of turn off and just take in where you are and your environment. So that is just a touch of sort of what you can do just on the ocean in the Mornington. So you have all the food and dining, you have this amazing wildlife scene, and then you have somewhere like the Lawn Retreat. For more experienced agents on the call, you're probably looking at booking Sorrento, the Intercon. To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of it. It's a great product, but the spa is what's special about the Intercon. If you're looking to do a wellness itinerary, 100%, you need to look at the Intercon at Sorrento. It's a great location, but the rooms sort of fall down. And that's where I look at somewhere like the Lawn Retreat, which is new. It's a farm stay and it's more of a homestay as well. So you actually feel like you're in amongst the locals with all the farm animals around you. It's very high touch, very funky. And they absolutely, like, they get it. They get 5-star service because it's so small. It's only 7 suites as opposed to the Intercon, which is over 100. So we like to sort of push towards these more intimate experiences when we're looking at a wellness itinerary because it's quieter and makes a little bit more sense in the flow.
Mike, you said
Yes.
the Lawn Retreat. Can you spell that?
LON, Lawn Retreat.
Okay.
Yeah. Sits on the water in the Bellarine Peninsula near
Great.
Mornington. Continuing on sort of this theme of, doing activities which is sort of friendly for all our clients, whether it's families, couples, or groups. The Great Ocean Road, I think, is understood as a great self-drive itinerary. You can self-drive everything that I've spoken about. But one of the newest experiences we have is we partner with Lowell, who's an Indigenous artist. And what he does is he creates Dreamtime stories on the beach with his feet, which you can see here. And this picture is captured by a drone. This is actually a really, it's a powerful experience because you're connecting to land, you're connecting to the Indigenous culture, which is hundreds of thousands of years old here in Australia. And you're by the coast and there's no one around. So it's about an hour experience where he'll want to share a story about his past and his elders with the client, and then they'll map it out with their feet, so doing all the circles and patterns. And after that, he sends up a drone and they take photos. And a really nice way to end this is that we have a heli land, and then they just jump back on a heli for a scenic tour over the 12 Apostles, which is what you see here. The bad thing about helis is that they can't fly at night. So what we've come up with now is the low-flying fixed wing. That is a new experience. So what that means is we can piece together a great Southern Ocean Road day or two, doing the experiences like the sand art, seeing the 12 Apostles, and then we can actually fit in a sunset fixed wing flight back to Melbourne. It's only half an hour. It's really not far. So all these experiences are very, very close to Melbourne. And what you actually get then is the best light, because the sun sets over the ocean. You get the best light to light up all the Apostles. And you also see how untouched these regions are, where, we don't send our clients to the mass regions. We send them to the more untouched areas. So you actually get a bird's eye view of where you've been, where you've come from. And then you fly into Melbourne at night, which is just spectacular. And it's different and it's cool. And then you can bounce into like a nightlife experience where you do the bartending thing or a cooking class. So that's the Great Ocean Road. Oh, koalas, yes. Wildlife obviously is a key selling point for Australia. The Great Ocean Road has the most abundant population of koalas in Australia. We have quite a few like little streets that we like to go down, and there's probably like 20 koalas on each tree. It's if you want to tick the koala box, not only do you have the Moonlit Sanctuary on the way to the Mornington and Phillip Island, if you do Great Ocean Road, there's hundreds of koalas and kangaroos everywhere. So you'll immediately tick the wild. I want to see the kangaroo box, tick, koala, tick, and in the wild too, and close. And just to wrap up, a few key selling points for ETG and what makes us different. We are all about connecting with your clients directly with you if you like, or just jumping on a call with you, just so we can talk about these experiences, because we do tend to sort of, I suppose, go for the less commercial, the less vanilla. And that requires effective communication so that you can set your client up to make sure that we're doing this correctly for what they want to do. We also do 24/7 in-country support with WhatsApp with your clients. We can price in net or gross in any currency you like. It's really up to you. If you're doing Australia, New Zealand, we do one invoice for all destinations for you, and our pricing's transparent. So we break things down as accommodation, experiences, and transfers. We can do line by line if you like, or we can just do one gross figure. Entirely up to you. You just tell us what you want. We can do that. Our itineraries are presented digitally with We2 on a mobile phone. That allows, I think, for the younger traveler, they're more acute to using their phones, so that works really well. Everything's all laid out there with images and videos, or we can do PDFs. Again, up to you. Follow us on Instagram. We're doing a big famil through New Zealand on the 9th of October. So if you want to follow along and see what we put together for New Zealand, and also a bit of a continuation into what Charlotte will talk about next week for the South Island. We are the only operator that does what Charlotte's going to talk about in the South Island. It's really special and empowering. So that is it from me. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And
we have
Charlotte,
a couple of questions.
Yeah, or questions, or you guys drive from now.
So one question is, do you work directly with the customers or only with advisors, or both?
Both.
Both. Okay, both.
It's quite rare that we work directly with the client. It's generally with the agent. But I suppose we were just saying that we are open to doing that if you want.
No, I think the question comes along if a customer can find you directly without the agent.
Oh, very rarely that we work client direct. Okay. We're mainly B2B. Okay. Yeah, okay. 98% of our business is B2B.
Perfect. And then the other question is, I know Charlotte's going to go and dive deep. A reminder of this is October 3rd at the same time that we're doing this. But something that happens, and I know you and I have talked about this before, but something that is very common in the US is to try to combine two different destinations. And obviously the idea of having Australia and New Zealand in one big itinerary, is that something that you suggest? And if it's not New Zealand together with Australia, what other destinations that you service would you say you could combine?
Look, I think given the size of Australia, to combine, it's just important that agents listening, that if you're going to do two of the Australia, New Zealand, or New Zealand, Fiji, or whatever it is, if you've got 14 days, which is sort of the generalization, how long itineraries are, if you do 7 and 7, you're only getting just a taste. And that's okay. But I really would suggest, if you're that 10 to 14 day mark, to encourage just one destination. New Zealand's size does allow for you to see a lot more than Australia. So it's really just about having that conversation with the clients. Like I've just shown you here, you can spend 7 nights easily in just one city. The depth of experience here. And it's ticking all those boxes. New Zealand pairs very nicely with Fiji. It's close. Connections are easy. Also, if you're doing like New Zealand during the colder months, it's nice to sort of jump into a warmer climate after that. And then Papua New Guinea actually pairs really well with Australia because it connects really closely with Darwin. Hope that answers those questions a little bit.
Right. Yeah, it answered the question. There is a question about commission. Can they add extra commission on the invoice?
We can present net or gross commission. We generally suggest about 10 to 12% for gross invoices. When you go over 12%, I think it's just important to know that the margins that we work with across Australia and New Zealand are not like what you see in Africa. We're halving the commission with you with agents. So if you go over 12%, you're going to start to be pricing above what you'll see online, and that's a decision you can make. But yeah, stick to about 10 to 12.
Bob, your question about this is individual is correct. This is for individuals, not for groups. I mean, it's all, if you have a group, of course, it can be customized to a group, but they don't do anything that is presetting where you can add people to it. Am I correct, Mike?
Our groups it's the same with, if we get a group like a multi-gen family, it's the same approach as an FIT couple. What do they want to do? How do they want to do it? So we don't put limits, I suppose, on the size of the group, but if they're a high-end group wanting to have an awesome curated experience, you know, we can get 10 helis in Melbourne. That's fine.
Right. The question is more about, these are not experiences that you have groups. They're by,
Yeah,
they're,
sure.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and some of the experiences would have a limit, but case by case.
Good. And then lastly, Natalia is asking about budgets and how do you work with budget? Is it a minimum that you can help certain travel experience transportations? Are the hotels booked separately? Do you prefer to book all at once?
Sure. Good question. Thanks, Natalia. I would say that we are your partner on the ground. So we try not to say no to your requests. So if you do have something that's 4-star, we're actually really good at still making it 5-star and cutting the costs on the experiences, not to jeopardize the experience, but, you know, there are some really, I'll just say the word cheap experiences, which we can put in, which are awesome, like taking a little canoe down the Yarra with a bottle of champagne at sunset. It's like $60. And then what that does is it frees up so much of the budget and you can still stay at a nice 5-star hotel. But we can do 4-star hotels as well. You just need to let us know what we're working with and what's more important. Is it the experience or is it the hotel? Generally it's the experience. So we can cut on the hotels a little bit. For the second half of the question, in an ideal world, we like to book everything for you because if something goes wrong, then we're there to kind of cover bases for everything. But if you did want to book hotels directly, look, we're your partner on the ground. We'd only just ask you to be transparent with us at the start, and then we can work around that. So we're not going to say no.
Perfect. And then I always take a lot of pride on how fast you and the team do the turnaround, but let's just talk about it because I think it's really important, mainly with the time change, the time zones and everything else. I've been saying now this for a little while. The new sense of luxury is how fast we can reach our partners and how quick those questions can be turned around. So when the advisor reaches out to you, with questions, how fast can you do a turnaround with an itinerary?
Depends on the level that we're looking at. For example, if we're looking to get like a spa bath helicoptered up to Mount Cook Retreat or something like insane, that takes a bit of time. With those ones, we try push it out within a week. The easier ones where it's Sydney, bit of regional touring, Blue Mountains, up to the reef, get a charter. It's a couple of days, but we'll keep you, you know, we're highly communicative between myself and TL. We keep you informed the whole way. So if we're having a delay, we'll let you know. You're not going to be standing there thinking what's going on with my itinerary. We tell you every day, you know, hey, Bob, there's going to be a 2-day delay. We're still suppliers dragging their feet, but we'll get it to you as soon as possible. But yeah, generally about 2 to 3 days would be the average turnaround.
Yeah, and I will say it's more like 2 days and 3. I've seen that, so I'll say more of that. Speaking of the art gallery that you mentioned, are there any restrictions? Are there any seasons or anything that they should look into or like stay away because it's such an exclusive thing to do?
Oh, for the art gallery? No, there's no restrictions.
Okay.
For seasons. The restriction would be the cost.
Right. And what's the cost, give or take?
This is depending on the piece of art that they'd like to have dinner in front of. It's about $50,000.
There you go.
US.
Right. And that's for your dinner.
Yeah. It's one of the most exclusive experiences in the country. Right. But we can pull that. Don't worry. We can pull that way back. That's just like the top.
Yeah. And then Bob had a question, and I know we've talked about this, but just as a friendly reminder, what are the best times to visit New Zealand and Australia?
Sure. for Australia, I'll let Charlotte talk about New Zealand. For Australia, my personal favorite time is after February. I find summer is very, very warm, and it just cools off a little bit from that February, March, April, May period. And everything sort of dies down in terms of how busy just how busy tourism is over that period. So that would be my perfect pick for Australia. And New Zealand. Charlotte, I'll let you go.
Hi, everybody. New Zealand, I would say, I guess we're really I guess where our climate here is not as extreme as the likes of Australia. So we're not getting into, those 40s peak summer, but high 20s, early 30s are definitely kind of what we've come to expect. So I would say, I mean, the peak December, January times, they're good times to travel, but it is busy. It is the peak time. So those shoulder seasons like October, November are fantastic. And then, February, March, April are great months as well. New Zealand's winter is reasonably mild. It does get cold down in the South Island. The snow recently has been a little bit temperamental, but if you are wanting to travel over the winter time, it's still a wonderful time to visit, especially up in the North Island there. It's still fairly mild and you're traveling without the crowds. So we can kind of, make a lot work and just communicate about kind of the pros and cons of the different times to travel.
Perfect. And Mike, one more question, and I'm guessing, Natalia, that this will depend on where, but what are the top 3 activities that you would recommend for winter times?
Easy. Davidson Safaris in Northern Territory. That is a very, very, this is not for everybody. It's a very, very remote safari where the guides are extremely highly trained. Winter's the perfect time to go. And the guides are extremely well trained because they take you through Indigenous rock art sites. There's thousands of them there, and it's one of the most profound experiences you can do in Australia for Indigenous rock art. And that is ideal in winter because not only is there rock art, you're seeing flooded rainforests. It's a wetland area, hundreds and hundreds of crocs. Like these crocs are the size of bloody buses. That in itself is cool. So that's number 1. I'd go Davidson's. And then number 2, Uluru I love Uluru during winter. There's no one there. That's the best time to see it. Depending on the sort of person you've got, if you're on the top end, you've got longitude, and the experiences that they offer are excellent. So whether it's the sunset canapes on your balcony overlooking. So with Uluru, the light changes the rock color every 3 minutes, I think it is. So all the experiences are tailored about sunset or sunrise. Winter's perfect. You can just be in a t-shirt and it's not too cold. The segways around Uluru, again, it's one of those sort of like cheaper experiences, but it's just really fun. So that's number 2. Number 3, for winter, I would look at Lord Howe Island as a bit of an unknown destination. So Lord Howe Island sort of sits on the bottom of the Great Barrier Reef, and the island only has 400 people on it. So it's extremely private and it's a very local feel. Thousands of seabirds migrating. There's whales, turtles, some of the best diving in the country. The water's still warm, plus no one sells it. So there's no tourists. I would highly recommend those 3.
Great. Fantastic. Any other questions? Oh, we have more questions. Is it allowed to have a private dinner overlooking Uluru?
Yeah. So there's a couple of experiences that are dinner related at Uluru. There's a shared one where you can be with other people. And then there's Longitude 131 does offer a dining experience under the stars, and you can have a star guide. And it's special. I have done that. There's no light there, so you get the entire Milky Way. Yeah.
Perfect. Will you cost? The cost exactly.
on the shared one is about $350 Australian.
Okay.
So 200 US ish. The private one is about 600 total.
Perfect. Can you repeat the third site that you mentioned, your favorite?
Oh, Lord Howe
Sure.
Island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also important to keep in mind with the luxury lodges of Australia, so longitude 131, a lot of the experiences are all inclusive. It's just part of the cost. So when we do quote like longitude, you'll look at the price and you might gawk a little bit, but you have to remember that most things are included. And
Right.
yeah, that's part of the expense. And the third destination was Lord Howe Island.
And can you do that in summer? Will you recommend that in summer?
Uluru?
No, Long Harbour Island.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. Excellent. Lots of questions. I love it. Any other questions that we can think of? Okay, I think we're good. I think we just got all the questions in, and this was fantastic information. I'm so happy that everybody had these many questions. I think there's a lot to learn, but this is just a little taste. As I said, we are going to do our second session on October 3rd. So Charlotte is going to be the queen for that. Teaching us everything that has to do with New Zealand and how to travel, etc. Mike, before we close, I just wanted to circle back with you and kind of go over what would you say for an advisor that's trying to propose Australia to a client that has never been and perhaps has not thought about it. Who would you say is the perfect customer to go, the perfect traveler to go to Australia?
Question. It's so diverse, but I think typically it's someone that's looking to disconnect. We're very remote. The lodges and the products that we offer in Australia, it's all about wilderness and getting out into the great outdoors. So it's going to be clients that like to be active. They are wanting to be in the water. They're wanting to be in the air. They're wanting to be out with animals. And yeah, I think luxury in Australia is a bit different to, say, Europe. The quality of the lodges, it's not really, well, let's just compare directly to New Zealand. The lodges in Australia, accommodation-wise, do not compare to New Zealand. It's all about the experience. It's not about the bed. You'll find that with the New Zealand product, the lodges are on another level to Australia. So it would be the great outdoors, animals, food, and people that aren't afraid to get a bit sweaty. And yeah, to address the last question I see there, is it possible to travel between Oz and New Zealand by boat? Good question. I don't know. Charlotte, do you know?
I'm sure you can, but it's not something that I've put together for a client before.
Yeah, I've never done that either.
The research, yeah.
We could charter a yacht, like a private yacht, and have that sorted out. Absolutely. But if there was like a big boat that goes, we'd have to look into it.
Fantastic. Nice. Great. Any other questions before we close this? Awesome. Thank you both. Thank you, Charlotte. We'll see you in a week, actually, exactly in a week. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, everybody, for participating. This was fantastic. If you have questions after this, we will send this recording presentation. Of course, you have Michael's information, so feel free to reach out and ask questions to either one of us. Mike, you were going to say something.
Oh, just Charlotte, just so she can quickly tell everyone that's watching what she's going to talk about next week.
Yeah.
Yes, so next week I'm going to be talking to you all about, well, just a general kind of overview of New Zealand and traveling, kind of like what Mike did with Australia. And then we're going to kind of dive into a bit of a deeper dive into special, unique experiences that we provide with our clients down in the South Island, where I'm based down in Wanaka, and how those experiences kind of empower our clients and our guests. So yeah, really excited to share that with you all.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, Bob, we will send invitations to everybody. So it'll be a reminder invitation so that you can join the call. It's actually on October 3rd at the same time that this one took place. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.